The top stories tonight in Y News. Outgoing President Rodrigo Duterte urges the Commission on Elections to look into election fraud allegations and recommended the abolition of the party list system to his successor. The United States and China have congratulated former Senator Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who is leading in the partial and unofficial count of the 2022 presidential elections. Presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte promised to work on producing skilled learners as she agreed to take the helm of the Department of Education. The Philippine National Police defended the cops who were captured on video tearing up ballots on Election Day in Cotabato City. Good evening, Philippines and the world. We are now reporting live from Quezon City, and today is Thursday, May the 12th, 2022. Join us in the next hour as we deliver today's top stories around the Philippines and in other parts of the world. I am William Theo. We are also seen in 1,935 satellite monitoring centers nationwide and via live streaming worldwide through the UNTV News and Rescue social media accounts. First in the news, President Rodrigo Duterte lauded the Commission on Elections for the swift completion of the 2022 elections. However, the president urges the poll body to investigate the reported glitches in the vote counting machines. The outgoing chief executive also recommended to his successor to abolish the party list system. Rosalie Cos will tell us why.
President Rodrigo Duterte said he believes there is no cheating in the conduct of the 2022 national and local elections. This is amid the canvassing of votes in which presidential candidate Bongbong Marcos Jr. is the front-runner. However, to disabuse the minds of those making allegations that there is irregularity, he encourages the Commission on Elections to investigate it.
Ito namang yung may glitch o sabi nila na mga sira na hindi nagbasa ng vote. I hope that COMELEC would also find time to investigate, just to disabuse the minds of those na may dayaan.
Meanwhile, the chief executive recommends to his successor to abolish the party list system, which he said is being abused by the leftist groups. He also suggests to the next president to immediately begin the process of charter change.
There is really a demand of the moment yung the changes ng constitution. Whether you want to convert it into a federal or dapat umpisahan na sa bagong administrasyon. Kailangan talaga. Ako, I recommend the abolition of itong party list.
The president did not succeed in pushing the federalism proposal under his term. On the other hand, Malacanang has named the member of the PTC, or the Presidential Transition Committee of the Duterte administration, headed by Executive Secretary Salvador Medialdea. The members include Foreign Affairs Secretary Teodoro Locsin, Finance Secretary Carlos Dominguez, Budget Undersecretary Tina Rosemary Canda, and Socio-Economic Planning Secretary Carl Kendrick Chua. PTC has been created through Administrative Order No. 47 and has directed all departments, bureaus, and offices under the Executive Department to create their own internal transition committees. PTC will ensure smooth transition of power to the next administration on June 30, 2022. Rosalie Cos, UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
Presumptive President Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. has invited United States President Joe Biden to his inauguration on June 30, 2022 in Manila. Nel Maribohok reports why.
U.S. President Joe Biden has congratulated former Senator Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr. on his victory in the recently concluded elections. The camp of Marcos considers the phone conversation between Biden and Marcos as one of the most important message for the incoming administration. Marcos assured Biden that the Philippines has always held the United States in high regard as a friend, an ally, and a partner. The presumptive president also invited President Biden to his inauguration on June 30, which he said could further fortify the relationship of the two countries. The two leaders also spoke of strengthening of ties in trade and diplomacy, as well as their common interest in democracy, self-determination, and economic recovery. According to the statement of White House, President Biden is looking forward to working with the President-elect to continue strengthening the U.S.-Philippine alliance while expanding bilateral cooperation on a wide range of issues, including the fight against COVID-19, addressing the climate crisis, promoting broad-based economic growth, and respect for human rights. Earlier, U.S. State Department Secretary Antony Blinken also congratulated Marcos and acknowledged the long-standing relationship between the two countries. Nel Maribuhok, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Chinese President Xi Jinping also sends a congratulatory message to Presumptive President Bongbong Marcos Jr. China hopes for a stronger and deeper ties with the Philippines. Eileen Cerudo will tell us why.
Chinese President Xi Jinping reiterates the strong bilateral relations of China and the Philippines helped in providing regional peace and stability. Even with no formal proclamation yet for the victory of Presumptive President Bongbong Marcos Jr., President Xi already sends his congratulatory message. In a statement, the Chinese president said China and the Philippines are neighbors and have been partners through thick and thin. In a separate message, Chinese ambassador to the Philippines, Wang Xilian, also sent his congratulatory greetings to BBM. He also expressed confidence that the next administration will surely demonstrate unprecedented unity to rise above all challenges in order to recover from the pandemic and to prosper. The Chinese officials hope for a deeper and wider relations with the Philippines under a new administration. The Chinese ambassador also assures the Chinese government will work with the Philippine government to upgrade relationship of comprehensive strategic cooperation and bring more tangible benefits to the citizens of the two countries. Despite criticism, the Philippines formed stronger ties with China under the Duterte administration. Eileen Cerudo, UNTV News and Rescue, we serve the people, we give glory to God.
Presumptive Vice President Sara Duterte said she would work on producing skilled learners as she agreed to take the helm of the Department of Education. Janice Inhente reports why.
Leading Vice Presidential candidate Sara Duterte Carpio thanked her running mate, Ferdinand Bongbong Marcos Jr., for her appointment as Education Secretary. In a statement, the presidential daughter said she is ready to work on shaping students to become skilled learners. She said the country needs a future generation of patriotic Filipinos that advocates peace and discipline in their respective communities. Duterte admitted that she and Marcos initially talked about the possibility of her leading the Department of National Defense, but she explained what made her eventually change her mind. The Teachers Dignity Coalition or TDC reacts on the appointment of Sara Duterte as the next DepEd Secretary. The group said that it would be better to have an education secretary who has an educational background.
Sabi naman po, no, sa TDC, of course, no, pagkat maalis sana, gusto namin yung educator sana, no, yung somebody who is known, no, in education advocacy, or academe, or educator herself or himself. Dapat meron talaga nakaset na criteria, no, for a deputy secretary or for any cabinet position po, no, na dapat yung mamumuno ay talagang naandun, no, talagang may inclination siya, no, doon sa pamumunuan niya.
However, the teachers group said that they are ready to cooperate with the new leadership. Meanwhile, the presumptive Vice President thanked DepEd Secretary Leonor Briones for their readiness to work with Duterte's team for the transition of leadership after the proclamation. Janice Enhente, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
In other news, the Philippine National Police, or PNP, defended the cops who were captured on video tearing up ballots on Election Day in Cotabato City. Leah Ilagan will tell us why.
The Philippine National Police confirms that some cops assigned as Board of Election Inspectors indeed tore some ballots in Dato Ayunan Elementary School in MB Kalangalan, Cotabato City during Election Day. PNP spokesperson Police Colonel Jean Fajardo said it was mandated by the Commission on Elections. Fajardo explains that after the casting of votes, the PNP BEI members were mandated to tear up the unused blank official ballots and spoiled ballot sheets.
Nakausap na po natin sila at yun nga po yung nakuha nating information sa kanila. They were tasked to tear po ito mga balota dahil nga po tapos na nga po yung botohan at ayaw na rin nga po dun sa votes ay pwede pong punitin yung mga unused ballots para nga po hindi na ito magamit. Yung isang nakita po doon, ma'am, na shaded po na balota, ito po ay considered spoiled ballots po. Kaya po yun ay isinama na rin po doon sa napunit po ng ating mga kapulisan na nagsilbing Special Electoral Board of Inspectors po doon sa nasabing presinto po.
Meanwhile, the PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group is also investigating the alleged manipulated video circulating on social media.
Iba-iba na po kasi, ma'am, yung lumalabas na mga video at tinitignan na po yan ng PNP Anti-Cybercrime Group po ng PNP dahil at it appears po ay parang pinagdikit-dikit po itong ating mga video to give a semblance of ikanga po ng put doubt dun po sa integrity na nangyaring election nga po dyan.
The PNP urged the public to be careful in dealing with information from unverified sources. Leah Ilagan, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
For those watching our live streaming on YouTube, please click the subscribe button you see on your screen and ring the bell for notification. You may also follow us on Facebook. The Commission on Elections considers the 2022 national and local elections a success amid the pandemic. The poll body emphasized the strict implementation of COVID-19 health and safety protocols during the proclamation of winning senators. Isko Miguel will give us the details why live. Yes, Isko, good evening. Go ahead.
Yes, William, good evening. The Commission on Elections will be limiting the number of companions of the winning senators when they are proclaimed here at the PICC in Pasay City. The COMELEC has yet to announce the number of allowed companions per senator. But last 2019 elections, William, each senator is allowed to bring 10 companions. Here is Director John Rex Laudianco, the acting spokesperson of the Commission on Elections.
We have to check please po, we have to remind our potential senators-elect na this time we will be limiting yung kanila pong companions gaya ng paglilimit natin sa filing of COCs. Nasa pandemic pa rin po tayo. We're still under alert level 1. At sisiguraduhin po namin na ito pong area po natin, magiging sapat po ito para sa kanila at doon po sa papayagang companions.
William, the COMELEC expects the proclamation of winning senators at the soonest possible time.
The earlier that we could proclaim, the better. Isa pa po, malaking kabawasan din, makakatipid ang gobyerno matapos makapag-conclude na tayo dito. Lahat po ng aspeto kasi niyan tinitignan po namin. Best case scenario projection is a week's time or so. Early next week.
Meanwhile, COMELEC acting spokesperson Director John Rex Laudianco assures that the proclamation of party list groups and their nominees will not be hampered. This despite the special elections that will be held in 14 barangays in Lanao del Sur and in Shanghai, China.
As much as possible, sir, we would wait for them. Depende po sa labanan. Kung dikit-dikit po yung mga nasa halos dulo ng nagko-compete na party list, mahihirapan po tayong mag-proclaim in so far as the bottom part. Kasi kailangan makuha po natin to dikit-dikit. Pero kung malalayo po yung margins, malalayo na po yung margins talaga nila na yung around 10,000, lampas-lampas na, tingin ko naman po hindi po makakatagal sa atin ito.
The National Board of Canvassers resumed their session at 3 this afternoon. They have already canvassed 121 out of 173 certificates of canvass.
The voters who actually voted, or our voter turnout, in particular for those provinces, cities, and overseas posts that we had already canvassed, is around 84.81%. Ganun po kataas yung voter turnout natin dun sa mga lugar na nakanvas natin. We had done already on 82. 50.36% na po ang nakakanvas natin on the start of the third day. And we expect to canvas more today po.
William, the poll body emphasized that the number of votes and the voter turnout show that it is accurate with the election results being reported. The COMELEC says there is no anomaly or irregularity this 2022 national and local elections. The National Board of Canvassers will also reconvene tomorrow at 1 in the afternoon to continue the canvassing of the remaining certificates of canvass. And that is the latest live. Back to you, William.
Yes, thank you. Isko Miguel reporting live from PICC. The Commission on Elections will push for additional honoraria for teachers who served as electoral boards and worked beyond the usual period of rendering election services. Dante Amento tells us why.
COMELEC acting spokesperson Director John Rex Laudianco is looking for a similar resolution for the consideration of the Commission and Bank. This is regarding the grant of additional honoraria for teachers who served in the previous elections as Board of Election Inspectors. But Laudianco clarifies it is not an overtime pay but rather an additional honoraria.
Sa ating po mga bayaning guro at mga electoral boards, huwag po kayong mag-alala. Hindi po ito first time na nagbigay ang COMELEC ng additional honoraria.
Laudianco added they have yet to verify through their finance services the amount of the possible additional pay. The poll body also assures to provide the honoraria for all teachers who served in the elections within 15 days after the elections.
Makakaasa po ang ating electoral boards. Ayon po kasi sa Electoral Service Reform Act, dapat po ang honoraria ay maibigay namin within 15 days from the day of the election. At sisiguraduhin po ng COMELEC na mabibigay po ito sa kanila within the time frame allowed by law. Absolute po yan. Wala pong excuses at gagawin po namin yan.
Based on the COMELEC Resolution number 10727, a chairperson of the Electoral Board will receive 7,000 pesos and 6,000 pesos each for the members of the Electoral Board. Dante Amento, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
Meanwhile, protesters who wish to hold rallies and other public gatherings in Manila should now get a permit from the city government. JP Nunez reports why.
Manila City Mayor Isko Dumagoso signed a memorandum order re-implementing permits for holding mass gatherings and rallies. The City of Manila suspended the permits in rallies to give chance for running candidates to freely campaign during the elections. However, the mayor brings back the memorandum citing provision in Batas Pambansa 880 or the Public Assembly Act of 1985. With this, the Manila Police District and barangay officials need to verify if those holding rallies in the city have permits.
Para po tayo ay tuloy-tuloy na sa pag-move on sa buhay, no? Yung mga kaguluhang binabalak o ginagawa na nakakadistorbo sa pamumuhay ninyo. Yun po, kailangan silang kumuha ng permit. Tapos na ang kampanya, tapos na ang halalan, nagdesisyon na ang tao. Now, we have to put things in right order. Opo. Dahil ang gusto ko, mga kababayan, makapasok na kayo sa trabaho nang hindi nalilate dahil sa mga kaguluhan sa kalsada.
However, militant groups insist the right of free speech among Filipino people. Labor leader and youth groups explain that imposing permits on rallies are a way of silencing their complaints against the government.
It's another way of silencing the dissent ng iba't ibang sector. So we will also go against this kasi Marcosian na decree ito, yung PD 880. In fact, ilabanan namin to dahil it restricts freedom of expression ng mga mamamayang Pilipinos.
Hindi po required ang kumuha ng permit kapag magrarally at magtitipon-tipon dito sa Liwasang Bonifacio, at nais namin paalalahanan ang lahat ng mga nasa posisyon na karapatan ng mga mamamayang Pilipino ang magtipon-tipon at magpahayag ng aming pagkadismaya sa maruming halalan.
The Manila Police District clarifies that protesters can freely express their sentiments in freedom parks in Manila as stated under the law. But if the protesters organize rallies outside these areas, they will be immediately dispersed by the police.
Pakiusapan sila for humanitarian reasons. Pero pag talagang nag-focus sila ng pag-abala sa mga day-to-day activities sa lugar na, kagaya ng traffic, kagaya ng business, pwede silang i-disperse. At yan ay nakalagay sa batas ng BP 880.
Police presence in front of the COMELEC office in Intramuros, Manila will remain until the final canvassing of votes. Meanwhile, the Commission on Elections call on protesters to set aside their anger and encourages them to file formal complaints. JP Nunez, UNTV, News and Rescue. We serve the people. We give glory to God.
The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority, or MMDA, will prioritize clearing the school areas of any campaign waste materials. Different sectors, however, turn campaign materials into upcycled products. Asher Kadapan Jr. details why.
Clearing operations against election campaign materials are being intensified in school areas for its reopening. The Metropolitan Manila Development Authority explains this as they assist local government units in removing campaign propaganda after the polls.
Yung sa ating mga LGUs at sa different barangay, kung medyo malapit ko kayo sa eskwela, baka pwede pong i-priority muna natin yung mga school in preparation for the opening of classes dito sa face-to-face. Willing po kaming tumulong sa kanila.
The Department of Interior and Local Government, however, gives LGUs only 3 days to clear their respective jurisdictions from campaign materials. DILG Secretary Eduardo Año prods LGUs to come up with innovative and safe strategies to recycle or upcycle reusable campaign waste materials. So far, the MMDA already collected over 600 tons of campaign paraphernalia since May 10. Metro Parkway Clearing Group Director Francis Martinez says they plan to recycle and convert them to hollow blocks.
Iniimbak lang po namin dito sa Ortigas base namin para po yan sa Bitas Tundo para sa granular machine namin para ma-convert natin into hollow block or bricks po.
Some residents, however, reuse campaign materials, especially those made of tarpaulin, for other purpose.
Malaga talaga, malagang bahay, lalo na kung umuulan. Nakakatakip siya sa paninda namin.
Eco Waste Coalition, on their part, encourages reusing and repurposing election paraphernalia to create bags, aprons, tools organizers, envelopes, folders, among others.
Ginagawa ng Eco Waste Coalition is more of a watchdog role pagdating doon sa pag-check noong basura na na-collect natin after ng campaign season. Kasi we're also working in partnership with MMDA sa pag-collect ng mga materials na ito, and then we recruit workers no na mananahi din. Tapos sila talaga yung gumagawa ng mga products na.
Asher Kadapan Jr., UNTV News and Rescue. We serve the people, we give glory to God.
And for the news abroad, Ukraine's top prosecutor disclosed that they will hold the first war crimes trial of a captured Russian soldier. Ruth Bahe tells us why live. Yes, Ruth, go ahead.
Mariel, good evening. Ukraine's Prosecutor General Irina Benediktova said her office charged a captured Russian soldier, Sergeant Vadim Shishimari, in the alleged killing of an unarmed civilian at the onset of the Russian invasion. Just 4 days into the war, officials said the civilian man, who was 62 years old, was gunned down while riding a bicycle. The Russian sergeant, who served with a tank unit at that time, was accused of firing through a car window on the man in the northeastern village of Chupahivka. Benediktova said the soldier could get up to 15 years in prison for committing war crimes, but did not elaborate on when the trial would start. Ukraine has been investigating more than 10,700 alleged war crimes and has already identified over 600 suspects. Marielle?
Thank you, Ruth Bahe, reporting live. In a report released today by the United Nations, authorities are calling for urgent mitigation as humanity faces rapidly worsening drought conditions. Marvidal Finn will tell us why live. Yes, Marvi?
Marielle, the report titled Droughts in Numbers 2022 estimates that by 2030, 700 million people will be at risk of being displaced by droughts unless urgent action is taken. Executive Secretary Ibrahim Thiaw of the United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification said, "We are experiencing a crisis and should steer towards solutions rather than continuing with destructive actions." Marielle, the number and duration of droughts have increased by 29% in the past 21 years, which according to Mr. Thiaw has not only affected human societies, but also the ecological systems. Mr. Thiaw suggests that a proactive and risk-based approach to drought management should be taken. He says that land restoration is one of the most comprehensive solutions that addresses other issues such as degraded water cycles and loss of soil fertility. Without urgent action, the report estimates that up to 5.7 billion people, or 3/4 of the world, will be living in water-scarce areas in 2050. Marielle?
Thank you, Marvidal Finn, reporting live. Tech giant Google signed deals with more than 300 news publishers in Europe for their content. Joselito Ligido will tell us why live. Yes, Joselito, go ahead.
Good evening, Marielle. In order to comply with European Union copyright law, which was established back in 2019, Google had to pay an undisclosed amount to 3 news outlets in Europe. The law set in place gives new rights to European publishers, making it a requirement for search engine like Google to oblige with copyright deals to link and provide previews of news content. This has been the aim of the European Union to standardize the use of creative content online, ensuring that creators are fairly remunerated in the digital space. In addition, Google also announced that a new tool will be launched which will offer licenses deals to thousands more news publishers, starting with Germany and Hungary. Sulina Konal, Google's Director of News and Publishing Partnership, said on Google's blog post that the licensing offers are based on standard criteria with respect to existing copyright law. In addition, Google stated that it will continue to invest in products and programs to provide even more support for journalism in Europe and around the world. It recently announced the Innovation Challenge for Europe and the Google News Initiative Subscriptions Academy, which provide publishers with intense 8-month program focused on digital growth. Marielle?
Thank you, Joselito Liquido, for that live report. After 2 long years of harsh lockdowns and border restrictions, New Zealand's Prime Minister announces plans to reopen the country for the next 2 months. Paul Gatchalian will give us the details live. Yes, Paul?
Marielle, just yesterday at the Business New Zealand event, Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern introduced New Zealand's border reopening plan to the rest of the world. While New Zealand began to gradually reopen their borders last month, first with Australia, the US, Britain, and 50 other countries, many remained closed off. The reopening plan now details the lifting of border restrictions to all countries, starting with visitors from the Pacific Islands who can apply for visas from the 16th of May. Following this, on the 4th of July, all work visa categories, including the new accredited employer work visa, will also be open for applications for skilled workers can apply to enter the country. Meanwhile, student and visitor visa applicants from the rest of the world will have to wait until the end of July, where Prime Minister Ardern also plans to remove the requirements of pre-testing for COVID-19 before flights. Marielle?
Thank you, Paul Gatchalian, reporting live from New Zealand. And those are the reasons behind the news in other parts of the globe. I am Mariela Toza reporting live from Perth, Australia. Good evening.
Our Kasangbahay, as the world faces these trying times amid the pandemic caused by coronavirus, we are inviting everyone to join the global prayer for humanity from Monday to Friday, 9:30 p.m. Philippine time through the social media accounts of Members Church of God International. And before we close, we will leave you with a word giving glory to God from the book of Proverbs, chapter 16, verse 3. It says, "Commit thy works unto the Lord, and thy thoughts shall be established." And those are the reasons behind the news, the 12th of May 2022. Reasons we deliver to you as they unfold. I am William Theo. Because we need to know, we will always ask why. We serve the people, we give glory to God.